Ground invasion, day 9. There may be many more to come. Israel has released this footage, said to show its troops on Lebanese soil. And this is the view from Tyre, an ever-expanding war. Israel's bombardment has killed around 1,500 people across Lebanon in the past 2 weeks. As we watch, Israeli airstrikes get close. Then closer still.
Well, this strike has just come in right behind our hotel. Incredibly loud, incredibly close. We can hear sirens now, first aid rushing to the scene. And there are some civilians I can see very close to the area of the blast.
Emerging from the smoke, a mother and child who had tried to escape the war with a trip to the beach. This building was hit, leaving 1 dead. It housed a pro-Iranian TV channel. Israel says it's targeting Hezbollah. Tell that to this grieving son. His elderly mother, Layla, was killed in an earlier strike. She will join 18 others in this mass grave. They'll be exhumed and reburied when it's safer. The rituals of life and of death destroyed by war. He rages at Israel. Until our last breath, we won't leave our land, he says. If we die, we will all be buried here. Then he helps to lay her to rest and is left to shoulder his grief. Orla, Guerin, BBC News, Tyre.
The very latest from Orla there in Lebanon. Well, what about the situation on the other side of the frontier in northern Israel? Lucy Williamson has travelled along the border from east to west on a day when heavy rocket barrages were coming in.
All along Israel's northern border today, the sounds and the skies were the same. Israel's air defences meeting Hezbollah missiles. Sometimes they missed. In Kiryat Shmona, long a target for Hezbollah rockets, more than a dozen landed, one killing a couple out walking their dogs. When we arrived, firefighters were still battling the blaze at this house. Watching from the pavement was Katie, whose father lives next door.
I see red.
I see red, she said. It's not fear, it's this, just anger.
Israel says it's launched its ground invasion partly to stop attacks like this. Rockets and shrapnel have been landing in Israeli towns along this border for a year now. And residents tell us they want their army to do whatever it takes to make this stop.
Israel has expanded its ground invasion to the western end of this border. Hezbollah says it attacked troops with artillery this morning, just over this hill. Towns on the Israeli side, now part of a new, closed military zone.
And that's the road to...
Shelley moved here 40 years ago and refuses to leave. She says sirens sound here 8 or 9 times a day.
I've got pieces of rockets in my garden, okay? Did anyone warn me? Do they shout to us that we are going to be bombed? No. Their aim is to murder us, to kill us, to send Israel to the sea, and our aim is to defend ourselves.
Israel's army said Hezbollah fired 90 rockets in the space of 8 minutes today. A border clouded by conflict in a region on the edge of war. Lucy Williamson, BBC News, the Israel-Lebanon border.
Israel clearly expanding its operations in Lebanon against Hezbollah, but there are growing questions too about how this country will respond to Iran's multiple missile attack. A week ago, Now, the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant says any response will be deadly, precise and surprising. And he called Iran's missile attack aggressive but imprecise. However, as America calls for restraint, influential voices here in Israel want a powerful message sent to the Iranians. Indeed, a former Israeli Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, has urged Benjamin Netanyahu to go after Iran's nuclear facilities, a suggestion that makes Washington very nervous indeed. He's been speaking to Jeremy Bowen.
Israel's onslaught against its enemies, this was an attack in Beirut last Saturday on a senior Hezbollah leader, wouldn't have been possible without American weapons and diplomatic support. Even though Israel's military hardware depends on US resupply, Washington has been reluctant to pressure Israel when, as Joe Biden has put it, they go over the top. Since April, when Iran attacked Israel with missiles after an Israeli airstrike on their embassy in Damascus, the US has been telling the Israelis not to escalate by hitting Iran's nuclear sites, even after the latest Iranian attack last week. Now, influential voices in Israel want to ignore US wishes. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett is one of them, saying this opportunity should not be missed.
So we're at the 11th hour, which was not the case 3 years ago. But there's also an ability that didn't exist until now, because essentially Iran was defending itself with two arms, Hezbollah and Hamas. They were sort of its insurance policy against a strike. But now both of those arms are pretty much neutralized.
So the defenses are down, is that what
exactly,
you're saying?
and the road is paved.
Is it the case you want the Americans to do it for you?
I can tell you we've never asked in our history of America to fight our wars or to send soldiers to fight our wars.
Iran, from Iran's point of view, they might think they're defending themselves because, you think about it, Israel escalated the war in Lebanon. Israel decided to assassinate the leader of Hezbollah, Hassan Nasrallah, a very big ally of theirs. And so they were pushed into a position, weren't they, where they had to respond.
Quite the contrary. You're mistaking the events. There is a regional war taking place, but the head of the octopus that's conducting all this war is the only part that's immune. It's unbelievable if you think about it. All of this mess, all of this chaos, all of this death is being governed and managed from Tehran.
Isn't the danger you might speed that up, provoke them into creating a bomb faster?
Fast forward, 2007. Israel took out Syria's nuclear reactor. Again, people don't like it, but we saved the world from Assad with nuclear weapons. We have the thankless job of taking out nuclear facilities of the worst regimes in the world. Everyone likes to criticize us, but we're doing that job.
Isn't this a
and if they get that bomb, it's everyone's problem. It's not our problem. I want to see how Londoners will feel when there's an intercontinental ballistic missile with a nuclear bomb. We cannot allow that to happen.
Israelis are getting on with their lives while their government decides how to retaliate for the ballistic missile attack last week. The next steps in this spiraling war depend on that decision.
Well, Jeremy's here with me in Jerusalem. First of all, Jeremy, it seems a bit odd, given everything that's been going on here in recent months, that Biden and Netanyahu haven't spoken for months. And secondly, what actually came out of their talks today?
Well, the defense, State Department officials, they talk a lot. Biden, however, like previous American Democratic presidents who dealt with Mr. Netanyahu, has a very poor relationship with him. They do not get on. Netanyahu has a tendency to lecture them about what they should be doing, and as presidents of the most powerful country in the world, they resent that. Biden particularly, I think, because he's done so much for Israel. Now, as for that call, the White House put out what they call a readout, which I actually read very little. Pretty anodyne stuff. They'll defend Israel steadfastly. Israel has a right to defend itself, etc. No more knowledge about what they might do with Iran. I think there are two things at work here. Joe Biden trying to calm things down, yes, retaliate, but don't do too much. And these currents in Israel that say, look, we have a real opportunity now to hurt our worst enemy. Do it.
All right. Jeremy, thank you.